Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your co-host, Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC 248, Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero. And Shaq, it's going down this Saturday in Las Vegas, Nevada. The middleweight championship on the line. You got the undefeated champion, Israel Adesanya, taking on one of the scariest men in middleweight history, Yoel Romero.
Yeah, Israel Adesanya, the style bender. I mean, this guy, he's got all the swag in the world. He backs it up in that cage. I mean, look what he's been on lately. I mean, starting with the Brad Tavares fight, then he goes into the Anderson Silva beating one of the goats of our generation, and then the last two performances, the one in Atlanta, Kelvin Gastelum for the interim title. I mean, you know, you're not going to see too many fights better than that one. And then Robert Whittaker putting him down in the fashion that he did, man. This guy, I mean, stamped himself as a legit champion, and I'm interested to see how he takes this next step, because we know Yoel's coming off a loss to what was supposed to be Israel's next opponent, Paulo Costa. So it was a good fight enough that Yoel didn't really lose too much stock in that fight. So I'm glad to see him get back in there in another title fight, and at least he gets another opportunity, man. He's been so close several times. I know he could have, at least been an interim champ the night he knocked out Luke Rockhold, but he unfortunately pulled a Davison and missed weight. So it would be cool if he did.
Yeah, and man, I got so much respect for Adesanya because he didn't have to take this fight against Yoel Romero. He said his legacy would not be complete unless he fought the man that many consider to be one of the baddest men in the middleweight division, in Yoel Romero. And Israel's taking a serious risk. Look, he's got the Paulo Costa fight waiting for him. All he's got to do is sit out a couple months, and then you got your number one contender. But he says, no, I want to challenge myself against Yoel Romero in order for my legacy to be complete. You got to respect the guy for something like that.
100%, man. He's got some big balls.
And, man, the co-main event of the evening, you got Weili Zhang. She's 20-1. Now, allegedly, that one loss, I read an interview with the opponent that beat Weili Zhang, and that opponent said that it was actually an amateur fight. So we could be looking at 20-0 Weili Zhang, and she's taking on the greatest strawweight of all time, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. In order to really cement yourself as a true champion, you got to go out there and beat someone like Joanna, especially in that weight class, Shaq.
Yeah, Joanna champion. And she was the initial strawweight queen, man. She had that great run for so long. She fell up on some tough times, hasn't been able to gain that belt back, and hey, she gets another opportunity as well, man. She's still out here. When she takes her step down in competition, she usually goes out there and handles business quite appropriately enough to get consecutive title shots. This is a great fight. Weili shocked everyone her last fight in that title fight in China, knocking out Andrade, who Joanna also has a win over, but man, in the fashion that she did in less than a minute, I think it was. So I mean, Weili Zhang, man, she might be the real deal here.
Man, it's a clash of styles. It's a clash of personalities. Obviously, Joanna's feeling confident, pointing that number one finger and, calling herself the strawweight queen still. So I cannot wait to see their face off, and obviously the fight that's about to go down. Well, Shaq, before we break down this card start to finish, got to let them know to go to our website, bestfightpicks.com, and get our plays. Obviously, last week, coming off that Brendan Allen dog bet. Prior to that, went big on Yan Zonan. It's been a good run so far, so go to bestfightpicks.com. Use that promo code 2020 for 20% off our VIP plays. And Shaq, let's break down this whole card start to finish, because first up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Argentina's Guido Cannetti. He's 8-4. And Mongolia's Danaa Batgerel is 7-2. Currently, they got Danaa Batgerel -135, and the comeback on Guido Cannetti is +115. Well, look, Guido Cannetti is the more popular fighter here. He's been in there with Mr. Perfect Kyung Ho Kang. He's been in there with Marlon Chito Vera. He also was on the first ever Tough Latin America. So people know who Guido Cannetti is. But look, Danaa Batgerel went out there against Haile Alatang, had a fight of the night in his UFC debut. They lined him the favorite here. Which way you going, man?
Yeah, man. He did go in there, get a fight of the night with Haile Alatang, who turned out to be someone. I mean, he did beat Beneil, who
he's 2-0 in the UFC,
who beat Sergio, who beat Benavidez, who beat Cejudo. But nah, I think that this is a good fight to open the card. Guido Cannetti, he always brings excitement to the cage, and he's pushing 40. He's a former USADA, a former USADA abuser. I mean, look, the guy, he's had his trials and tribulations. situations, but I think he can definitely, he's live for a first round knockout for sure, a first round stoppage. But if this fight gets in a dog fight, and if the blood starts leaking from Guido Cannetti, if any adversity pops up for Guido Cannetti, usually he looks for his way out. So I think that from a betting perspective, there's a certain price you can have a limit with Batgerel. I mean, he's not the best guy. He's bottom dweller of the UFC, but he's fighting a 40-year-old guy who, I mean, like I said, if any adversity pops up in this fight, if he gets dropped, if he, has to go through any tough situations, this guy will definitely look for his way out. So I'll pick Batgerel, but I don't want to say, I think it's a pass fight, man. I think that he's good enough to get the win here, but I think it's accurately lined.
Yeah, look, initially I was thinking it might be a dog or pass situation, but then when you go back and actually sit down and watch the film on Guido Cannetti, I just cannot trust that guy at 40 years of age either, man. It's not like a Yoel Romero 40 years old, Shaq.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I guess watch his tough fights. Who'd he get knocked out against?
Was it Gabriel? He beat Marco Psycho Beltran, right?
Yeah. Knock out.
But someone knocked him out stiff.
Was it Alejandro?
I think it might have been Alejandro, right?
Yeah, I think it was Alejandro.
Yeah, Alejandro knocked him out in the first round. And he actually lost to Marco Psycho Beltran, by the way.
Exactly.
So, with Guido Cannetti, he's fun to watch because he brings that explosive blitz in that first round. And if you're not quite ready for it, I mean, look, even Hyung Ho Kang and Chito Vera had to weather a small little storm in that first round, but once they took over in devastating fashion. Now with Danaa, Batgerel, I know everyone's going to mention this win he has over Kai Kara France, but if you're going to mention that, you also better mention that Kai Kara France was 3-2 at the time, so let's not put any stock into that whatsoever. Kai's had like 25 fights since then.
What happened if they rematched?
Yeah, so look, I think this is a matchup where Danaa Batgerel, as long as he doesn't get starched in the first round, I think he can take over the second and third, come out here and win this decision, but it's contingent on him not getting badly hurt in that first. So let's see what happens. Next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Jamall Emmers, he's 17-4, and Giga Chikadze, he's 8-2. Currently, they got Jamall Emmers -185. The comeback on Giga Chikadze is +160. Well, Shaq, Jamall Emmers finally making that UFC debut. This is a guy who, on his best day, he's got wins over Alexander Hernandez, Corey Sandhagen, but on his worst day, he has a knockout loss to Julian Erosa. So I got to know, Shaq, is he going to have a good day or a bad day Saturday night inside the octagon?
Man, this is a really good matchup because, he was initially supposed to fight my boy Masvidal, but my boy Masvidal unfortunately had to pull out of this fight. So now Chikadze had a fight against Mike Davis a couple weeks back, but Mike Davis pulled out. So, hey, they get to run it here, and I'm very excited. So Emmers, man, like you said, he's got the wins over Sandhagen and Hernandez back in the day. He beat them both by decision, and it seems like he's a well-rounded guy that just likes to move forward. He kind of has a karate stance. I see him doing a lot of training with Darion Caldwell, who, pretty much is in the finals in that Bellator thing. So I think that Emmers is a good fighter, but, man, I was impressed with Giga Chikadze's last fight against Davis. I know Davis is, out of the UFC now, but there was some improvement in his ground game. I heard he's been doing some privates with Beneil Dariush. He's been working on his ground game. So I feel like as far as if these guys stand, I feel like Emmers is a little thicker. He's a little bigger. A little more stronger. But, man, if he starts moving backwards, if he starts standing out there in space with Giga Chikadze, I think Giga Chikadze has the advantage. So I think that from a betting perspective, for me personally, it's dog or pass. I feel like Giga Chikadze, if he continually is making these improvements that he's making, I think that he can, at least stand out here in space enough to win 2 of the 3 rounds. I feel like Jamall Emmers has, I don't want to say a suspect chin, but I have seen him wobbled in the past. And when he can't get his takedowns, he struggles. But if he's smart, he's going to definitely be looking to press here with the takedowns. He's got a lot of submissions on his record, so I see why he's favored. But I would just, for me personally, I would make it more like -135. I think that Giga Chikadze striking in MMA against certain guys, man, he can make him look really silly. So he did slow down against Brandon Davis in that 3rd round, but, man, the first 2 rounds I was very impressed with. So I'm actually going to go with Chikadze here in the upset.
Man, so Chikadze's come a long way. If you watch his Contender Series fight against Austin Springer and then compare it to the guy we saw against Brandon Davis, it's a completely different guy. So got to give him credit. He's definitely in the gym making improvements. But Jamall Emmers he's got so much more experience. And it really comes down to what you said. If he is smart, he will take this fight to the ground. It's just I don't know that he is smart. If he was smart, he would have went out there and beat Julian Erosa also. So man, it's a tough one to call here, but I am going to slightly favor Jamall Emmers here. He does have the wrestling, and that is a part of Giga's game that needs a lot of work, but an upset's not going to surprise me, and I do agree it is a dog or pass situation, but I'll personally slightly favor the favorite here. Now, next up in the strawweight division, we got a matchup between Emily Whitmire, she's 4-3, and Polyana Viana is 10-4. Currently, they got Polyana Viana minus 120. The comeback on Emily Whitmire is plus 100. Well, people were cracking some jokes after Emily Whitmire's last fight. They were calling her Quitmire. They were calling her Shitmire. You think she gets back on track here as an underdog against Viana?
Yeah, I mean, look, she definitely got embarrassed her last fight because, the weigh-in situation with her and Ribas. And Ribas is legit in my opinion. I feel like Whitmire, I think she was just... I actually thought she looked probably the best she ever had on the feet, and striking-wise, it's just Ribas with the jiu-jitsu and the pressure is on a completely different level. So, and then you got Viana on the other hand, who it just seems like it's getting worse and worse. Who'd she beat in her debut? Maya Stevenson, who's a complete...
Ever since that fake article came out with her beating up that guy that we actually know...
Like I said, she never beat up any guy. Like
Tiago beat that guy up.
Come on, guys. But anyways, look, she got beaten handedly by J.J. Aldridge. Then she gets the fight with Cyphers. It was a close one. She loses that. And then she gets armbarred by Macedo in her third one. So, I guess it could only go up from here. But, man, I feel like Whitmire is just a more well-rounded fighter. I feel like against certain opponents, she can be a little bit more confident. I just think that she's got more well-rounded skills. And I just, from a betting perspective, would never play Polyana Viana at minus money. Maybe I'm wrong. But, look, Whitmire's definitely pulled her stunts, but at least the two girls that she lost to, I feel like are somewhat, respectable. So I'll take her.
Yeah, look, it's a tough one to call. I think it's a coin flip type fight. I will slightly lean on the opposite side and actually take Polyana Viana here. She actually has a knockout win over Ribas. Granted, it was a long-ass time ago, but...
It's like Batgerel beating Kaikar.
With Whitmire, it's one of those things where if she doesn't get her first round sub, she kind of does check out a little bit there. And with Polyana Viana, even in that last fight against Veronica Macedo, when you look at the result on paper, yeah, it was a first round submission. But prior to that point, she was landing some hard kicks. She was going at her aggressively. And I feel like if she does something like that here against Emily Whitmire, she can get the upper hand. So I'm going to slightly lean with Polyana Viana in this spot. Next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Deron Winn, he's 6-1, and Gerald Meerschaert is 30-12. Currently, they got Deron Winn minus 140, and the comeback on Gerald Meerschaert is plus 120. Well, Shaq, do you think a 5'6" guy with a 6-1 record can beat Gerald Meerschaert in a fight?
Yeah, it's a good matchup, man. I feel like this is a good matchup between talent and experience. You got Deron Winn, even though he's 5'6", he's very talented, man. He's got some power, very good takedowns. He's a little bit of a liability in the clinch. Meerschaert's got good subs, underrated boxing. Meerschaert has got a hard body kick as well that he's finished a lot of guys with. So it's going to be a really good fight, man. I see this being a dog fight between two guys that honestly need a win. I feel like Meerschaert really needs this win. If he loses this, he could be potentially on the chopping block his next fight or, something like that. And Winn, he's super hyped up, man. So he's got to win this fight. You don't want to lose two in a row. I think there's a chance that Winn could be swimming with some sharks that he's not ready yet for. He's swimming with Stewart and Meerschaert, these guys that are been fighting for a long time. And like you said, he's only got 7 fights. In the Spicy fight, he definitely put it on Spicy, beat him up the first 2 rounds. But there was plenty moments, man, where you had to hold your breath just because he's so his stature is very scary at times. When he's swimming with these big boys like Meerschaert and Darren Stewart. So I think that on the other side, you got Meerschaert, who I think that kind of like what I said about Kevin Aguilar a couple weeks ago. Not that I think Meerschaert is that severe, but I do think that there's a chance that Meerschaert starts to get more figured out along the way. Like, he's not the most athletic guy. He kind of puts himself in a lot of bad positions, and, now he's fighting a really good wrestler. So, possibly who could stall him out in certain positions like that. And he did get some good takedowns on Darren Stewart, is why I say that. So I think that Meerschaert definitely has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, more experience. So, I understand why one would take a dog shot on him, but I think that I want to see what happens on the scales if he makes weight, because, he did miss weight for his last fight by 2.5 pounds. He said he was eating, man. He said, let's see if he makes
that 50K bonus got to his head.
50 G's got some. I want to see if he makes weight this weekend, and if he does that, I actually think he's gonna edge out Meerschaert. I think it is gonna be a tough fight, man. I do think both guys are gonna have their moments. Meerschaert, like I said, a guy with a lot of tricks up his sleeve, but I just feel like Winn, can really hurt. Possibly, I know Eric Anders is a big guy, and Meerschaert stood in the pocket with him toe to toe those last 2 rounds, but I kind of feel like there's a chance that even at 5'6", Winn has better boxing and more power than Anders, even with their physiques being a lot different. So I think he could really touch Meerschaert up early and get off to a big lead. So I'm going to pick him for a decision win, 29-28.
So when this fight was first announced, before I watched any tape on it, I was leaning towards Gerald Meerschaert's way. He's very hungry for this fight. I heard that he's been getting up for this one, super motivated. Dude's got a serious body kick, a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You start scrambling with a guy like Gerald Meerschaert, you better watch your neck. And this kid, Deron Winn, doesn't really have a neck, Shaq, but what I like about Deron Winn, look, just on paper, he's only 6'1", he's 5'6". You think he doesn't quite have the experience, but then you go back, you look at the wrestling credentials, you see who he's in there in the gym with, and you see his performances inside the octagon. Look, even though he lost his last fight to Darren Stewart, I felt like it was a much better performance than the one against Eric Spicely, which we had money on him against Spicely. We were in attendance in Greenville, Carolina, and dude, let me tell you what, when he was getting caught with those knees, we were like, Deron, no! So, Deron, please! And Deron didn't want to take him down because, Spicely's good at attacking with subs off his back. Now, with Gerald, he's not really known for triangles off his back. He's more so on the entry to the takedown. He can snatch up a neck. So that's where Deron needs to be super careful, especially in the second and third round, because Deron's going to come out hard. He's going to win this first round. We know that already. But as the fight progresses and Deron starts to slow down, that's when a guy like Gerald, who's such a vet, who's so savvy, can go out there, take over the second and third rounds, potentially snatch up his neck and choke him out, maybe drop him with a body kick too. So Deron's got to come in here in the best conditioning he's ever been in his life, and if he does that, I think he's going to pass this test, man, because the blueprint's been laid out. You go out there, outstrike Gerald Meerschaert, mix in takedowns, don't get caught with something silly, and you win this fight. So I'm going to go with Deron Winn here to get the win. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Rodolfo Vieira, he's 6-0, and Saparbeg Safarov is 9-2. Currently, they got Rodolfo Vieira minus 650. The comeback on Saparbeg Safarov is plus 475. Well, I'll take this one first, man. So some action's been coming in on Saparbeg Safarov. The Rodolfo Vieira line was minus 800 earlier in the week. Now it's minus 650. And, it's one of these situations with Safarov. He's a very dirty guy. Like, he will grab the inside of your gloves. He will eye gouge you. He'll grab that fence, kick you in the nuts a couple times. And the ref warns this guy. He doesn't care. He'll push the ref out the way. And he has punched refs in the past. He's knocked guys out at weigh-in. So he actually slapped the guy.
I love this guy,
Safarov's hilarious. It's going to be interesting to see what he does here. But all I got to say about this matchup, we know a lot about Rodolfo Vieira because he trains with our good friend and Best Fight Pick sponsored athlete, Jared Nitrain Gooden. So Jared told us about what their roles are like. And let's just say one takedown and the fight will be over shortly after. So I'm going Rodolfo Vieira via first-round submission, Shaq.
Yeah, they don't call him the black belt killer for no reason. He just killed a black belt his previous fight against Pihota. And yeah, man, Safarov's a dirty guy. Look, Safarov hits extremely hard early. Vieira's got to be very careful. So I see why some people took a little stab on it at the big odds. And Safarov, man, you can't forget one of his legs is kind of really messed up, man. Yeah. So he's got a time limit on how live he is. I think he's gonna be live for a couple of minutes. But like you said, when he gets his takedown, when Safarov slows down, Vieira should take over and get this finish.
Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between the Danish Olympian Marco Madsen. He's 9-0, and the former LFA lightweight champion Austin Hubbard is 11-3. Currently, they got Mark Madsen minus 225. The comeback on Austin Hubbard is plus 185. Well, Shaq, I've been very critical of Austin Hubbard. I've even gone as far as saying that the guy is somewhat harmless, but I got to give him a lot of credit because even though he doesn't really dish out much offense, the guy can take an ass whooping like no one's business. So I got a lot of respect for a guy like Austin Hubbard, just in the sense that we were all expecting him to go out there and get crushed by Davi Hamosh in a way where I thought they were going to cut him off one fight, but then he goes back out there against Kyle Prepolek, weathered an early storm, comes back and wins the second and third round. So I was definitely impressed with what he brought to the table. Now it's just one of these things where Marco Madsen, look, he's got a big wrestling advantage here. Obviously, he's got the Olympic credentials, and I think he's going to mix in some blast doubles here. He's going to be able to get some nice top control on a guy like Austin Hubbard. It's just about, is he going to expend too much energy and start gassing out midway through the fight, where a guy like Austin Hubbard has historically been able to take over. But I personally don't think so, Shaq. I think that Mark Madsen does have the mental just the mental clarity and the motivation, the determination to go out here and stay composed for these 15 minutes and at least win 2 of the 3 rounds if he doesn't go out there and finish him. So I'm going with Mark Madsen to win this fight, Shaq.
Yeah, man, this is an interesting one because, Hubbard, like you said he's harmless at times. And, yeah, we've said that in the past. And he does kind of back up a lot. He kind of doesn't really like to engage much. He likes to use his movement and jab, and if he can out-wrestle guys. But, man, that style has got him some legit wins out there on the regional scene. And Mark Madsen, man, the jury's still out on him a little bit. And I know he finished Danilo Bilardo, but
if you haven't figured out how to finish
finished out how to knock out Danilo Bilardo, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. So, I do the fact that I think what the line open at, if I'm not
minus
mistaken,
750.
So now it's, I think, okay, now we're back at what, minus 250,
225.
I even feel like it could possibly be lying closer just because, like, Mark Madsen's been having these tailor-made fights, not really challenged. At least we can say, even though Austin Hubbard isn't very impressive on paper, he has earned his way here 100% by beating legitimate guys, the whole way through. So I slightly do lean Madsen just because, Austin Hubbard kind of has the tendency to shy away and back up. But, man, he did take that beating from Prepolek. But Prepolek, man, when Hubbard took him down, it seemed like he had no answer for it, man. So I think Madsen probably will have an answer for it. I'll take Madsen by close decision. But, like, you see how we're talking and where this fight's lined at. We feel like, I mean, look, Madsen's an Olympian, but, this is MMA, and he hasn't really done anything significant. So I'll pick him for a win, but from a betting perspective, dog or pass.
Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Sean O'Malley, he's 10-0, and Jose Quinonez is 8-3. Currently, they got Sugar Sean O'Malley minus 370. The comeback on Jose Teco Quinonez is plus 310. Well, Shaq, these two were supposed to meet 2 years ago. They reserved this matchup for Sean O'Malley. Now he makes his return. You think he gets back on track? Not that he ever got off track, but he's been sidelined for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a big fan of O'Malley. I think he's got a lot of talent. It's just, this is a layoff, and he's had a lot of shit going on. But I think the kid's very focused. And, Jose Teco Quinonez is a guy I've always been high on as well. So, I'm glad to see these guys finally run it. Jose's known for his movement, kind of similar to Dominic Cruz. His last fight, man, he put on a clinic with the takedowns against Hao Chin. And do I feel like this fight, I do feel like O'Malley's going to win most likely and get the decision or possibly a knockout. We know that Teco is very chinny. He's been knocked out stiff several times, hurt several times in his fights. So we can't forget that. But we also can't forget that O'Malley has been taken down and he's, struggled with, he lost rounds to Terrion Ware. He did, his leg did give out against Sukum Theth. He has been, I've seen O'Malley quit before in a fight. I mean, you remember that fight back in the day. So what I'm saying is I feel like Teco is a lot more suited this time 2 years later if, they would have fought 2 years ago when the momentum train was really on. I feel like now this, this possibly could be a fight, man. O'Malley might be a little bit rusty. So, I'm going to pick O'Malley for a win. I think he's just a way better striker, and the power, the feints, the move, the slips. The show he put on Contender Series, people are going crazy in that arena. If he was Snoop Dogg, if I had to fire one up right after that, man, with Casey Kinney and O'Malley. So I'm going to pick him for the win here. But I don't, as of right now, I don't want to say I just don't think there's much value on the line as of right now.
Man, I'll never forget Snoop Dogg's reaction to that O'Malley knockout. O'Malley! Like, it was fucking amazing. But look, the kid has lived up to the hype in his 2 UFC fights. I think that he's got a lot of potential with his striking style and his mindset, what he brings to the game. He's definitely got some star qualities too, and it looks like he's trying to improve his jiu-jitsu. He's out here training with guys like Tanquino multiple times a week. If you guys don't know Augusto Mendez, a great jiu-jitsu practitioner there, a very high-level black belt. So the kid's been putting in the proper amount of work, and with Teco Quinonez, I love his style. He's kind of like a Mexican Dominic Cruz a little bit, but the issue is, man, ever since he took that fight with Davi Ramos a long, long time ago, which you guys got to watch, by the way, his chin has never been the same. And we're talking about in matchups that he should just run through these guys. He's getting wobbled, and we're like, man, so a real striker was going to go out there and floor him. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen on Saturday night, Shaq. I do think it's going to be a pull counter or something like that, a 1-2 down the pipe. I think Sean O'Malley's going to knock out Jose Teco Quinonez. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Alex Cowboy Oliveira, he's 20-8, and Max Payne Griffin is 15-7. Currently, they got Alex Oliveira -140. The comeback on Max Griffin is +120. Shaq, both these guys, welterweight veterans. I'm surprised they haven't fought yet, but they finally meet this Saturday. Historically speaking, it should be a very exciting fight. Both desperately need a win. Who you think gets it?
Tough fight, man, because Alex Cowboy, a lot of people thought he got screwed his last fight. And Griffin, I actually faded him his last fight. And I just think Griffin, that he's just very basic, slow, flat-footed. Hits very hard, but he gasses out in pretty much every fight. He's below 500, lost to Thiago Alves. Griffin is... The Zaleem Ahmadiyya fight. Zaleem's a complete fraud, guys, if y'all haven't found that out, by the way. So, I think that Alex Cowboy, actually, this is I feel like a more suitable opponent for him. I feel like Dalby was coming in with a lot of momentum from Cage Warriors. And who's Dalby fighting? He's fighting Hot Chocolate, actually. Yeah. Hot Chocolate.
Co-main event in London.
I got Hot Chocolate like, hey, I'm just kidding. Hot Chocolate ain't losing in London. But I think Alex Cowboy... he was in some good spots in that fight. And yes, he has been continually putting himself in these stunt positions. And, I'm talking about where he's smashing Gunnar Nelson and then all of a sudden Gunnar's on his back and you're like, Alex, wait, no. And then he was showing signs of that in the Condit fight. I don't know, you remember that one. We had a max bet on him in that fight and we were like, Alex, wait.
And he gets his back taken by Condit. I was like, no.
Alex, no. And Alex will tap. So, I just don't think Max Griffin is capable of that. I just consider Max just a hard-hitting, tough, basic guy, flat-footed. And I really think Alex could get the win here. And I kind of have a feeling that it's kind of lined a little bit too low. Because, in their primes, you know what Alex Cowboy would have done to Max Griffin? This would have been a formality. He would have put Max Griffin down real quick, man. So, Max Griffin's a tough guy. I respect him. But I just see him continually going down. The Zaleem Ahmadiyya fight, which was a majority. I was there. The crowd was booing Griffin at times. We were like, bro, he's stalling. You know what I'm saying? So, it was a great fight, though. I'm exaggerating about that a little bit. But I'm going to go with Alex Cowboy by TKO finish in the first round. I think he finally gets back on track. I think this is a step down for him. And we'll see, man. But can you trust him? He has been pulling stunts. He pulled another stunt, too. Oh, yeah, the Mike Perry fight where he kind of...
Man, that was bad.
Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong, but Max Griffin, man, I just don't think he's good enough. So I'll take Alex Cowboy.
Yeah, look, like you mentioned, in their primes, Alex Cowboy is going to knee this guy in the body to oblivion. Look, when you talk about a serious tie-up against the fence and those hard knees to the body and to the face, I used to love that about Alex Cowboy. Man, he's such a physical guy, and he was also the kind of guy that you hit him.
You know what it was? It was the Yancey fight, bro. He hasn't been the same since.
You think that Yancey fight took everything out of him?
Has Yancey been the same since?
Yancey's looked like dog shit since then. But it used to be a situation where you would hit Alex Cowboy with your hardest shot, and it hurts you more than it hurts him. He was one of those guys, but always susceptible to the submission. But stand-up wise and in the clinch, the guy's a monster. And with Max Griffin, he's also somewhat of a physical guy. But he's kind of always been, a 500 or under 500 kind of guy. He's never really, besides the Mike Perry fight, and I guess he had a fight of the night with Zaleski. So he's always been an exciting guy, but he's never really truly gotten over that hump. This would be the biggest win of his career if he can come out here and get it, but I'm not convinced he does, man. Even though Cowboy has been showing some signs of decline, he still had some good moments in that last fight with Dalby, and I think he'll have some better moments here. So I'm going to go with Alex Cowboy to win this fight as well. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Lee the Leech Jingliang. He's 17-5, and Neil Magny is 21-7. Currently, they got Lee Jingliang minus 175. The comeback on Neil Magny is plus 155. Well, Shaq, I know they remember when we went out there and bet big on Santiago Ponzinibbio to destroy Neil Magny. That's exactly what happened, and now Neil Magny's making his return. It's been 2 years, a couple USADA violations later. He's got to take on the Leech.
Or just one?
I thought it was 2, right? Yeah. But either way, my boy was out there on that LGD 4033, you know what I'm saying? But look, Li Jingliang is an interesting guy. He's coming off the biggest win of his career over Zaleski, but aside from that, he seems to get dropped every fight. Can he keep it together here and finish Magny?
Yeah, it's a great matchup, man, because I think that Magny has achieved a lot of great things in his career. He beat Carlos Condit. He beat Johnny Hendricks, Hector Lombard, Tim Means. I mean, he's done it all. There's a chance that after this layoff in 2020, with the way these welterweights are now, man. I mean, I had Elizu beating Magny, for that. I thought he was gonna fight Magny when he fought Lee, and I think that Magny just in 2020, that pitter patter style with the jab and the little side kicks, and it's just not gonna work anymore, in my opinion. I feel like there's a chance he looks significantly diminished in his last fight, and how everyone remembers Magny. I know on his comeback, Magny was that hard worker, and Magny, the underdog guy, but I think he was an overachiever, and I think that overachievers eventually have to get set back to reality. And, I feel like a lot of people can't remember when Magny fought Lorenz Larkin. Remember Magny was number 7 in the world at that time. Lorenz was unranked, and you've seen how these unranked guys came in there and, absolutely treated him like he was an unranked guy. You know what I'm saying? Even his win against Hector Lombard, let's not forget that he was getting smashed on. I almost thought the fight, I had a bet on Magny, but, I thought the fight was going to get stopped several times. You know what I'm saying? Even the Kelvin Gastelum fight, which is a huge upset at the time, he did slow down in those late rounds. He got dropped in those fights. The Johnny Hendricks fight, one of his wins. Hendricks had a very good round against him when he missed weight by 3 rounds. So I feel like the facts have always been that Magny doesn't like pressure. Magny doesn't like calf kicks. Magny just doesn't like big power strikers in his face. And I feel like, although Li Jingliang has been dropped a lot, he's been hurt a lot in his fights, I just don't feel like Magny in that specific aspect of the game presents that type of danger, man. I feel like Lee is getting a little bit more cautious since the Matthews fight. He went out there and picked apart Daichi Abi for 3 rounds with the low kicks. We know that Magny's legs cannot handle the low kicks, man. The Lorenz fight, his legs gave out on him. The Pons fight, he was hobbling around on one leg, and the fights were over right away. So I feel like Li Jingliang, this is a perfect fight for him to get his name in those rankings. I feel like he's going to walk Magny down. Although Magny's got the reach advantage, he has a reach advantage over everyone, man. And I think that he can close the distance on Magny, chop him down with the low kicks, and then, close the distance with the hands and really start to hurt Magny. And I think he honestly dominates Neil Magny. I know Neil is very good at squirming around in there and, taking beatings. And, he can take a whooping and run away for a good little bit. But I think Li Jingliang beats him up every round and wins a decision.
Look, the last 3 times that Neil Magny fought someone relevant, he got absolutely blown out the water in a way where I start to question how this guy was even ranked at one point. And, you can bring up this Kelvin Gastelum fight, but guys, that was in, what year that was in? That was in 2015.
What was the who else fought on that night?
Like, just to put it in perspective, guys, that was half a decade ago. Like, the first fight of the night was Meerschaert versus Valmir Lazaro. You know, I bet on Lazaro that night.
Lazaro got robbed.
And to this day, I feel like I got robbed. But the co-main event was Ricardo Lamas versus Diego Sanchez. Just to put it in perspective, Henry Cejudo fought Jussier Formiga, and it wasn't even a co-main event. Okay, guys? That's when Neil fought someone relevant and actually won half a decade ago. But since that point, I mean, do you put any stock into beating Craig White? I'll tell you what I do put stock into, not being able to take down Craig White. That's pretty embarrassing, man. Like, Craig White, I mean, Diego Sanchez ran through that guy like it was nothing. And Craig White's the biggest joke we've ever seen in the UFC's history, and that's the last time Neil Magny won a fight. Prior to that, he beat the ghost of Carlos Condit, the ghost of Johnny Hendricks, the ghost of Hector Lombard. Guys, it's over. And with Li Jingliang, obviously, we don't like the fact that he gets dropped every single fight. But aside from that, he's solid, man. And he's solid everywhere. He can get back up from bottom. And on the feet, the guy lands with a vicious assault. That's why he's got so many finishes in the UFC. And I felt like he really rose to the occasion that last fight. Look, he had an opportunity to go out there and fight a top 20 guy against Jake Matthews or a top 25 guy. Shit didn't go his way, and we thought that might be it, that he might have hit his ceiling. But, man, since that point, to go out there and not just beat Zaleski, but to knock him out the way he did, that shows me that Jingliang is making improvements. He also didn't get dropped in that fight, which was a step in the right direction. And they've been trying to set up Neil at every corner, man. They try to set him up with Zaleski. Unfortunately, couldn't make it to that fight, so then Zaleski got the Lee fight. Then they tried to set him up with Vicente Luque, but Neil popped.
Yeah, we were ready on Luque for that one.
We were ready for a 10-unit play on Luque there. But now Li Jingliang gets to feast on the carcass, and I think that's exactly what he's going to do, man. So I'm going to go with Li Jingliang here via knockout. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Beneil Dariush, he's 17-4, and Drakkar Klose is 11-1. Currently, they got Beneil Dariush minus 165. The comeback on Drakkar Klose is plus 145. Shaq, this is an interesting matchup, and I'm going to take this one first. Look, I feel like Beneil Dariush is a much better fighter than Drakkar Klose in every aspect of the game. It's just there's one big factor we have to mention here, and that's the cardio. And that's an area where Drakkar could look to take advantage because, look, Beneil, man, on the feet, the dude's got a serious body kick, which he's had for years. The leg kicks. He's got a nice Superman punch. On the mat, you already know about his jiu-jitsu credentials. Look, Beneil, I cannot say enough good things about Beneil Dariush, and I stand by my claim that he was at one point a top 5 lightweight contender back when he beat Michael Johnson. But since that point, now he's kind of, top 25. This is a big opportunity for Drakkar Klose, and what Drakkar brings to the table is the guy's pretty much a bully. Look, he's got nice calf kicks, but what he does is you start to slow down on a guy like Drakkar Klose, and he will turn up, especially in that second and third round. So that's what Beneil needs to look out for. But if Beneil paces himself the right way, look, but I'm not convinced that Drakkar gets out the first round. But if Drakkar does get out the first round, which he's managed to do in most of his UFC fights, Beneil's got to pace himself well. He's got to manage his cardio. If he's able to manage that output the right way, I think Beneil is the far superior fighter and will win this fight. It's just about, in that late second round, if he starts huffing and puffing, a guy like Drakkar is going to push on that gas and go forward hard and look to break him. So I understand people taking the dog shot on Drakkar for that reason. You're hoping he comes out here and breaks Beneil late, capitalizes on a gassed opponent. But if that doesn't happen, I think Beneil is going to severely outclass him. So I'm gonna slightly agree with Beneil being the favorite here, and I will take him in the spot, Shaq.
Yeah, man, this is a good fight. Drakkar Klose is, like you said, a bully. He bounced back from his one loss against Timur. Beneil's on a 3-fight win streak. Moises, Dober, and Frank Camacho. The Moises fight, he did his thing there. But the Dober and Camacho fight in specifically, he was getting touched up by Dober a lot early on in those fights. Dober's super aggressive. And, he was able to just capitalize when he got the fight to the mat. And, he was able to get the submission. And Camacho just kind of picked him apart on the feet. One takedown, boom, got on top of him, and that was it. So I still feel like the jury is out on him, going like in the late rounds, 100%. We still kind of haven't seen what happens if he's in there with the real dog, man. So I feel like Klose is kind of that dog, kind of like you said with O'Malley training with Tankino. Drakkar Klose has also been training there for this fight in preparation. He's training at Fight Ready. I feel like Drakkar Klose, yeah, he's not the best technical guy, but man, he's got a really good chin. He is very reckless early, and he kind of makes guys react, and he makes guys, with the calf kicks. He makes them exert a lot of energy, and he, even though he'll shoot and he might not get it, and it is kind of sloppy, but he just makes guys work. He gets in that clinch. He's a typical lab fighter. That's where he comes from. He's at a different gym now, but I mean, Jakar Close, man, he was kind of underrated to me. So I think that Jakar Close, this is a perfect recipe for him to get an upset. I feel like a lot of people are high on Dariush, and rightfully so. I mean, he has been looking good lately, but are high on him at -170. I think that it could potentially be a recipe for Jakar to come in here and get an upset, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think that I'm not convinced that the first round is going to be this one-sided thing that people think. I know he looked good against Camacho, but I feel like Jakar is just younger, hungrier, stronger, just way better than Frank Camacho. And, he has gotten his back taken several times, and I'm interested to see what happens if he's able to get out of it. But one thing I can't say is, that Dober submission, Dober actually did get out of his back. Man, it's just Dober, he went for a takedown himself, and then Dariush reversed it, and that was it. So I'm going to go with Close for an upset here. I feel like the line's off. I feel like it should be a pick'em, and I think Close is going to get, I'm going to say, third-round knockout.
So Jakar Close has been training at Fight Ready, huh?
Yeah.
Or as we like to say in Brazil, Shaq, Fight Chetty. Co-main event of the evening for the strawweight belt, we got the champion Weili Zhang. She's 20-1, and the former champion Joanna Jędrzejczyk is 16-3. Currently, they got Weili Zhang -160. The comeback on Joanna Jędrzejczyk is +140. Well, Shaq, strawweight title is on the line. You think the Boogie Woman is gonna hold that belt once again?
Man, usually long reigning champs like Joanna usually don't ever get their belts back, and that's just facts. I mean, name one long reigning champ. Besides TJ Dillashaw, don't count him just because fucking he's a cheater. But
I mean, aside from Stipe, I can't really. I mean, the thing with Aldo was you really count beating Frankie Edgar as winning a belt back. You know what I'm saying? You could say, and John Jones never truly lost his belt. So I guess only Randy Couture and Stipe.
Yeah, so long-reigning champs usually don't get their belts back. And Joanna, I think it's usually the same thing, high volume, high pace, point fighting attack, good in the clinch. She's good everywhere, man. She's world-class still, in my opinion. I mean, you see what happens when she takes those step down in competition. She absolutely blows those girls out the water. Like, they got no business being in there with her. And Weili Zhang, it's really interesting because before this Zhang fight, she definitely won all those rounds and she did her thing. It was just at times, I just wasn't, all the way impressed. But the knockout, it was definitely impressive. But a part of me also feels like it's going to be a lot harder to find the knockout this time. I mean, Andrade, with all due respect, a good champion as well. But I truly believe that night, a lot of those people fighting that weren't from China, look how they looked that night. And also another thing is, Joanna's not going to, close her eyes and swing two big wild hooks, That's just not going to happen. So I think Joanna's definitely still chinny. But now we're going to really see what Weili Zhang's got. And now we're going to really see, her technical prowess. Now she's really going to have to be in a point battle here in some spurts of time. Like we saw with the Rose Namajunas fight, Rose knocked her out in the first fight, but we bet on Rose again in the second fight. But it was at dog money, and Rose Namajunas kind of did slow down in those late rounds, but she was able to stun Joanna several times in the early rounds. So I feel like a possible similar thing could happen here, where Zhang might be losing slightly a point match, but every time that she touches Joanna might wobble, stun. I mean, she's got that Euro chin, and that Euro chin, it's a tough one to get rid of. I mean, once you get Euro chin, that's it. So I'm just kidding. But I think that Weili Zhang should be favored. But from a betting perspective, I'm not even saying it's dog or pass. I just don't know that if Weili Zhang has still proven herself. I know the Andrade fight was spectacular, but now she's got a lot to live up to now, and I'm just not 100% sure if something like that's going to happen again. And she's -170. So I mean, or -160. At least the good side is more. Slightly more money is on Joanna, so I guess that's like a slightly good thing. But I'm a picker for the win.
Who?
I'm going to pick Weili Zhang for the win. I'm going to say it's a close decision. I think, that she will be tested in this fight, but I do think the power is going to edge her out this fight. Maybe she gets a knockdown somewhere along the way, and I think she retains her title belt. But I think it's going to be a good fight.
Yeah, look, Weili Zhang doesn't need a finish to win this fight. She can win a decision by landing the harder shots and mixing in takedowns, specifically body locks and trips, which we've seen work on Joanna in the past. Shaq, did you know Joanna's been taken down 23 times in her UFC career? Not to mention, Joanna has an extremely suspect chin, and this is nothing new. Joanna's been dropped 5 times in UFC competition, and I'm not just referring to Rose Namajunas knocking her head into the 5th row either, Shaq. How about that time Claudia Gadelha knocked her down with a jab? How about that time our favorite sweetheart Carolina had Joanna doing the Macarena in the 4th round of their fight at Madison Square Garden in New York City? And I'm supposed to brush it off like nothing happened? Look, Joanna can point her finger. She can say she's the strawweight queen, posture, do all these things. But the bottom line is, Saturday night in Las Vegas, Nevada at the T-Mobile Arena, Weili Zhang's walking out the undisputed champion. Main event of the evening. For the middleweight belt, we got the champion, Israel, the last style bender, Adesanya. He's 18-0, and Yoel, the soldier of God, Romero, is 13-4. Currently, they got Israel Adesanya minus 270. The comeback on Yoel Romero is plus 230. Well, Shaq, the talk is over. They finally meet inside the UFC's octagon. We have a feeling, look, if this goes the full 5-round distance, Israel's going to rack up the points. The question is, can 3rd round Yoel or 5th round Yoel come out here and put an end to things, starch him?
Yeah, I feel like this fight is kind of simple, man. I feel like Izzy cannot lose a decision here. I feel like his volume is too much. His distance is going to be too much on point. Yoel already backs up a lot. Yoel already likes to take breaks, and Yoel's very unorthodox. Izzy can definitely throw more strikes. That's 100%. And I think that Yoel... he's got the devastating power. He always live for the knockout. He'll never count Yoel out of a fight. But, man, if he's focused, as long as his head's straight, as long as, he's not too cocky, man, I honestly think he's going to pick apart Yoel Romero, man. I think Yoel has had a great run. He's a legend. But, I just feel like this is more of kind of like similar to the Silva fight, for the fans. Yoel's only live for the knockout here. He did have a good, but I still feel like the 3rd round wasn't as Yoel one-sided as people think it was against Costa. Costa, I don't want to say, it was a close round to me, man. So I feel like Israel Adesanya is going to come out here, do his thing, touch Yoel up, but he's going to have to keep doing it for 5 rounds. And I do think that obviously he gets into some 50-50 exchanges here along the way like he did in the Kelvin and in the Rob fight at times. But I just feel like, man, he's so much for the distance here. I think he's going to be able to back him up and just, especially with the kicks, blast him. And I think he should win this decision. And I think he will play things safe. When he gets in there and realizes, that he took a really risky fight, he's going to play things safe. And I think he's going to win a lopsided decision here. So I'll go with Israel Adesanya.
Yeah, man, look, I don't really have some big elaborate breakdown of this fight. I think it's pretty, not simple, but it's you understand what the dynamic of this fight is. Look, Israel Adesanya is going to be picking him apart for the duration of this fight. It's just about when Yoel commits to his strikes, how much are they going to affect Israel Adesanya? Is Israel going to be able to dodge, use that head movement, that matrix-like Silva movement, and get out the way? And land some big counters of his own, because if he doesn't, he will be knocked out here. However, I think he does, man. I feel like, and I don't want to disrespect one of my all-time favorite fighters in Yoel Romero, a guy that I've cashed on multiple times back in his run when he was an underdog every single fight, and he'd knock all these guys out in the 3rd round. It was an amazing time to bet on Yoel Romero. But now, man, we need that knockout punch more than ever, Shaq, to win this fight, because he ain't winning a long-term battle against Israel Adesanya. Unless he can get like multiple knockdowns and mix in takedowns and do all these things, then he could win a decision. But historically speaking, Yoel Romero does not do good when fights go the full distance, man, in terms of the judges' scorecards, except that one time we cashed against Jacare. I know you remember that. So I do think that Israel Adesanya is going to pick apart Yoel Romero, but I'm also curious to see if this is the last time, like if Israel goes out here and wins this fight, is this the last time that you get an under minus 300 line on him? Is he going to come out here and start being a big favorite every fight now? I'm just curious to see how this one plays out. But look, at the end of the day, I will go with the last style bender, Israel Adesanya, to remain the champion here. But Yoel's a guy that I don't feel comfortable putting money against because he's such a beast, especially minus money. At dog money, especially in that Costa fight, that's a sharp play. But here, I would personally sit back and watch it, but I understand the case for both sides, man. I understand people wanting to parlay Israel Adesanya, saying Yoel's time is up, but I also understand you see a plus 230 next to Yoel's name. Why not take the shot? So I understand both sides, but at the end of the day, I will go with Israel Adesanya and still the middleweight champion of the world. Well, Shaq, just got to quickly remind them to go to bestfightpicks.com. Use that promo code 2020 to save 20% off our bets at bestfightpicks.com. Now, Shaq, let's answer some of these fan questions, man. So GMO says, is it too early to get on the Fade the Sugar Show bandwagon?
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think it's too early, brother. Jack Scott wants to know what would happen if Cejudo fought Sandhagen and Yan.
I think he would. Sandhagen needs one or two more fights before he can get that. At least one. Yan has got, this is his fight right here with Moraes, so we're about to see. But if I feel like Peter Yan, that would be a war. But I still think Cejudo would get both of them.
Man, I got to see what happens in their upcoming fights.
I got to see how, because I mean Cejudo demolished Moraes, so let's see how Peter does.
Dave says, what would you open the Joanna and Zhang line if the Zhang and Andrade fight never happened?
Man, well, I guess Joanna would have to be the favorite if that never happened, right?
Yeah, I would line it a pick 'em if that never happened. Kevin says, if you and Shaq could each pluck one guy out of the NFL and NBA and make them start fighting, who would you choose? He would personally take Aaron Donald from the Rams and James Johnson from the Heat. So I would take Julio Jones versus John Jones, and then Trae Young versus Khabib.
Trae Young versus Khabib?
Yeah.
Bro, Trae Young going to get...
Well, you want to put him against Kamaru?
One guy from the NFL. What about... Let's go with my boy Ezekiel Elliott. You know what I'm saying? Let's put him in that.
With Stipe?
Yeah. I guess he is a heavyweight or a light heavyweight. And then basketball, let's put my boy LeBron James in there, man. Let's put my boy LeBron in there with let's start him off with Tim Means, you know. No, he's way too big. He's a heavyweight.
What about Latifi versus LeBron James?
I'm totally kidding, but
my boy Sega Uppercut says, does Joanna's confidence seem contrived to you guys as well? She's out here lying to herself, according to him.
Yeah, she always lies to herself. I mean, we said this before the Rose Namajunas fight rematch, but it was just based on the fact that Rose had already KO'd her stiff already. So, she is someone to lose. I mean, she gotta pump herself up, man. I don't blame her. Everyone's got a gimmick, you know, that's hers.
Yeah, I mean, she calls herself the strawweight queen. Need I say more?
Sweetheart, you haven't touched a belt in years.
Yeah. Moy's Noise says, does Shaq find Joanna attractive?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Ever since those new
Color of Money says, who will be the first Contender Series alum to win a UFC belt? Sodiq Yusuff or Edmund Shabazian, Jeff Neal, Montel Jackson. There's a lot of options. Yeah. All About Billion says, is the Ryan Hall hype justified? Well, what's the hype? I mean, are people saying he's going to be champion? I've never heard that. I mean, if the hype is he's an amazing leg lock guy, then that's 100% true.
He's ranked, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or it was ranked.
If he's ranked, it's towards
like 14,
the end of the rankings. If he's ranked,
he's got a fight with Lamas. He can prove himself here again.
He's number 13 in the world.
Yeah, so you know.
After he leg locks Lamas, we can reassess the situation. Garrett Irwin says, do you think Figueiredo and Benavidez should run it back for the flyweight title, and do you see the result being any different?
No, I don't see the result being any different. It's just a bad matchup for Benavidez. And should they run it back? I mean,
it looks like they're going to, so we don't really have a choice.
Is that really happening?
Yeah, that's what Dana said he wants.
Oh my!
So yeah, I guess Joe B is gonna get knocked out again. Angel wants to know, will Yan close as a minus 280 or a minus 350 favorite against Marlon? I highly doubt that.
No way. No way. He's that high.
Nah. So AFC Bowie wants to know, as a UK fan, who do you think the best UK prospect is? And according to him, it's Jack Shore.
UK, man, I like some of the Jack Shore. I like Meatball McCann. I like
I even
Darren
like
Stewart.
Nathaniel Wood, despite the loss.
Yeah, he's good. Grundy's fighting here soon. Like, UK's got some guys, man. Leon's got a huge fight coming up on that same card. So those UK guys know how to get down.
Yeah, he mentioned that. Look, Nat Wood, Molly McCann, Darren Stewart, Jack Shore. There's a lot of great UK prospects. And Fuego says, what are your thoughts on the Ankalaev Kutalaba stoppage? Worst stoppage I've ever seen in my life.
It was definitely a terrible stoppage. I mean, I honestly think he was rocked initially, but I also think towards the end of that whole, sequence that he kind of regained his, self and was kind of playing possum a little bit.
He was throwing an overhand right as the ref was stepping in.
What are you doing, Kevin? The only time I ever liked when that guy ref the fight was when he stopped that Henry TJ fight for us.
TJ, you were out.
TJ, you were out, bro.
Havenwood Jim says, would Jalen Turner versus Luis Pena be the skinniest fight in UFC history?
I actually said that, like, that should be, like, their next fights after they fought, so I'm down with that. That'll be a good fight.
Shark says, who's the worst champion in UFC history from a fan's perspective? According to him, it's Kamaru Usman. No, it ain't Kamaru, bro. It's Nico Montano.
The worst champion in UFC history? Nico Montano, yeah.
Nico Montano. BP says, with Yan and Marlon matched up, does that mean we'll see Sandhagen versus Aljo? It's a good chance.
More than likely. Make this a little tournament.
Something like that.
So, I mean, yeah.
Magic Man says, Madsen and Vieira parlayed at minus 146 to me is juicy. Do you guys like this play? He says he doesn't see either guy losing. I mean, don't go big on it. Don't put your whole bank account on it. I think they both win. I favor them both. But, are you getting much value at that line? That's the real question here. So good luck. Just don't go too big is what I would say. All right, some of our YouTube questions. Warrior wants to know most overrated fighter in the UFC at the moment. Why do the fans love talking about overrated this, overrated that? But who do you think is the most overrated fighter in the UFC at the moment? It's tough to say, honestly, man. Emil Meek. I mean, I can't think of one.
What about like Corey?
Oh, no, I got one. Tom Breeze.
Tom Breeze. Okay.
What was up with the love last week? Y'all got to show us love for that Brandon Allen dog money. So, Dimitar wants to know, do you think Tyron Woodley is going to retire after Leon Edwards decisions him 29-26?
No, because...
Well, it's a 5-round fight, firstly, brother.
Well, if that happens, Tyron spent all his money, bro. So Tyron's gonna be out here fighting until the end. I mean, he's gonna end up probably turning it into one of those guys that, if y'all haven't heard, I mean, all the money he won from those belts, he blew. So.
He blew his money, guys.
He's gonna be fighting for a while, and he's gonna have to, guys, in a couple of years, depending on what happens in the Leon fight, but don't be shocked if you're seeing Woodley out here getting ran through by these prospects. Don't be shocked in a year or two you see Ox Fighter out here knocking him out, or who's the next up and coming 170?
Jared Gooden.
Yeah.
So Aiden Rue says, early thoughts on Maia versus Burns. My only thoughts on it is that the line might be a little bit wide, but gonna look into that definitely for sure. Warrior Bet MMA says, name a more embarrassing title defense than Andrade when she fought Zhang. What about when Aldo fought McGregor?
Yeah.
Apex Gaming says, discuss, please, how you think Jorge and Usman will go. Does Street Jesus have a chance?
Yeah, he definitely has a chance. George was on the record to say, bro, if you think that, if you think I'm Colby, then let's box then, you know what I'm saying? So we'll see. I think that Usman had a great fight with Covington. I thought he proved himself. He's definitely got the tie-up, clinch, wrestling advantage for sure. He can strike too, man. He can hit. Definitely a little more stiffer. Jorge's real confident. But, man, a part of me also feels like, well, it's a whole different ball game than Nate Diaz and Ben Askren now, you know what I'm saying? So I slightly, favor Usman, but we'll see. Is there a line out? I think there is, if I'm not mistaken.
Usman's probably slightly favored.
Yeah, by a decent bit.
Yeah, wow, minus 260, Usman plus 200 Masvidal. So Slick Savage says, what should the UFC do to stop fighters from getting hit after they're clearly knocked out? For example, Ben Askren versus George. Well, that's not up to the UFC. That's up to the referees, and the referees are up to the Athletic Commission. So I guess the Athletic Commission would have to hire faster refs to run in there and stop the fight. MMA Quick Pick says, can Marco Madsen use and rely on his silver medal Olympic wrestling to get him the belt? No way.
No.
Always Be On Point says, hi guys, if Adesanya wins convincing at UFC 248, should he move up to 205 and challenge Jones? And should Romero then retire? Well, before he challenges Jones, he's got to fight Costa. So we got to see that fight. And then if he can beat Costa, then we can talk about Jones. Nick C says, this one's for you, Shaq. Is Drakkar close max bet season? Because Nick is feeling like he is.
I don't know about max bet season, bro. But, if you took a nice little stab on him, I definitely think it's warranted.
Stilio Canto says, when should Kutalaba and Ankalaev be run back?
Should have been ran back this weekend, bro. But, it should be ran back soon. But I actually think that Ankalaev said he's not interested. So, if he has a choice in the matter between you, he does have a choice. He's one of Kadirov's boys.
Sooner than later if they are to fight. But the later it goes, the more irrelevant that matchup becomes. Cheese says, is Israel's takedown defense overrated? No, he's got a great get-up game. He attacks from bottom now against wrestlers. Like you saw him attack Kelvin with that triangle choke. I think his full, well-rounded game is pretty damn good, man. So, no, I do not think that his takedown defense is overrated. Well, thank you guys so much for all these questions. Always love getting you guys involved and interacting with you all. So thank you so much for that. Now, Shaq, we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC 248?
My fight to watch is going to be, for an entertainment standpoint, I'm going to say Alex Cowboy and Griffin. I know it's on the undercard, but both these guys have a history for getting fight of the nights, for being in entertaining scraps. One thing you can't say about Griffin is that his fights aren't crazy, and same thing with Alex Cowboy. So I got a feeling that fight's going to be a little chaotic and a little wild.
Yeah, look, for me, obviously you got to watch an Alex Cowboy fight whenever he steps in there. But for me, my fight to watch is the co-main event between Weili Zhang, Weili champion, and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Just the heat going into this fight. Joanna loves to play mind games with all her opponents. She likes to say that she's still the strawweight queen. Every time she fights in a title fight nowadays, it's must-see TV. So I'm going with Zhang versus Joanna as the fight to watch.
What excuse she makes after this.
Well, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for UFC 248?
My fighter to watch is going to be Lee the Leech Jingliang. I think he's got a good opportunity to come in here and represent, his country of China, just like his teammate Yan Xiaonan did, a couple weeks back. And, I feel like they have very similar scenarios here, for their fighting guys on the way out, in my opinion. And I think he's going to be saying China power comes Saturday night. So, Lee Jingliang.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the guys to watch. For me, my fighter to watch is Beneil Dariush. Look, this is kind of a crossroads fight. I know the guy's on a 3-fight win streak, but I feel like if he gets a 4th win in a row, all of a sudden, Beneil Dariush can enter that top 20 conversation once again. And if he loses this fight, it's a massive setback, and he'll have to rebuild himself once again. So Benny's always an exciting guy to watch, and for the circumstances surrounding this fight, for that reason, Shaq, Beneil Dariush is my fighter to watch. Well, Shaq, we did it. It's going down this Saturday in Las Vegas, Nevada at the T-Mobile Arena. Israel, the last stylebender, Adesanya versus Yoel, the soldier of God, Romero. They can follow you on Twitter at MMAGenius05. They can follow you on Instagram at ShaqBFP. Our official Instagram is Best Fight Picks Official. You can follow me on Twitter at Best Fight Picks. You can get our plays at bestfightpicks.com. If you want to deal with us individually, use Shaq's promo code Shaq for 10% off, or use my promo code Dan for 10% off, all lowercase at bestfightpicks.com. Make sure you subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify, and all the places where we are available. We truly appreciate all your support, and thank you guys for sticking with us. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.